Hey everyone, how's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to our stream for tonight, and we are back with our D&D stream this very evening. Starting a little later because we had to step out for a little bit, but here we are. And tonight we are going to be talking all about Monsters of the Multiverse, which is the latest book to be released for D&D. It's a new splat book full of lovely monsters. There's a lot of cool stuff that was redesigned from Volos and Mort's Tomophoes. And hey, look at this. This is what we have here with us. This is the Rules Expansion gift set. And we got this thanks to our awesome which is Coast Senpai, who sent this our way. And we are going to be doing an unboxing of this. As you can see, oh, there we go. This is the shiny content that we have here. We have 3 books in the Rules Expansion gift set. And we're going to pop this open, and we're going to have our physical copy of Monsters of the Multiverse, and we'll also be streaming a read-through of the digital copy as well on our D&D Beyond. So let's take a look at what's in the box. So I think a lot of people have been always kind of curious about what they can expect from the Rules Expansion gift set. And this was released, near the start of the year, and I know quite a few people who have picked this up. And for us, this is a lovely piece to add to our collection. And I mean, I can kind of see why. Look at that. This kind of pretty shiny slipcase. The foiling, it's quite gorgeous. It's nice and white. But that also means you gotta be careful if you've got grubby paws. And there's quite a few things in here, right? So we have 3 books in here. We have Tasha's Cauldron. There is special cover. Monsters of the Multiverse, which was released early on before the official release on the 17th of May. So this was only available as part of the Rules Expansion gift set otherwise. And we have another copy of Xanathar's Guide. So that means 2 copies of Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's for us. And I can't wait to see what else is in here. So I'm going to just cut this open using my what I normally call the Phoenix shears, because it's kind of a cool name, fancy name to call a pair of scissors, right? So these are the Phoenix shears +1 of unboxing, I guess, which I also use for cutting up, MTG packs. Hey Roselle, good to have you with us. We are opening up our Rules Expansion gift set, and hopefully I don't botch this and damage the product, because everyone knows how clumsy I am. And watching me do an unboxing with the scissors is like watching hopefully not a disaster waiting to happen. Nervous laughter, yes. So far so good. So far so good. I think we've got this. Fingers crossed. Hopefully I don't jinx it. So here we go, getting rid of the plastic wrapper. Let's put the scissors away. Just don't have to worry about that. Make sure I don't have grubby paws, because I don't want to dirty the lovely white cover. It's the base. Here we go. Aha! Safe! Not damaged or harmed in any way. Okay, let's see what we have in here. So this is the lovely slipcase. Look at that. It's so cool. Oh. And this is a piece of paper at the back, backing. That's all the details of what you can expect. So there's a DM screen. The 3 books, which are kind of cool. I'm gonna put this aside as well. Let me put this here at the side, somewhere off to the side. There we go. And I love this. Look at this picture here. This is so cool. So you can see Orcus, you can see Xanathar, and Zutmoy is over here. And that's an intellect devourer right there. And some Gripply, I think, not Grump, Gripply. Okay, so let's take a look at this stuff. Let's pull this out. So we have our lovely slipcase. Take this away, put this to the side. Slipcase to the side. This is DM screen. It's fancy. So you can see Tasha's here. Sony. Yeah, so Orcus and Friends. This is how the DM screen kind of looks like. So you got all the cool stuff, all the important information that you might ever need, I guess, as a dungeon master for easy access. So some simple summary of the rules, some conditions. So it's a pretty useful, I guess, DM screen. Of course, I have a cool DM screen that was 3D printed, so I probably won't be using this because I have my awesome DM screen of my own that I'll be using for all the games I run. So don't worry about that. But here we go. This is the cover, Tasha's. This is the special cover for the lovely alternate art collectible edition. So you can see how cool this is. This is stamping. It's got kind of like a texture on it as well. So this is pretty fancy. Of course, the foiling as well in the back. And all details are and content are pretty much the same for as the old Tasha's, of course. But this is a lovely edition. And I will be keeping this somewhere safe. Yes. And then there's I guess this is a piece of paper as a divider. And this is the book, of course, that we're going to be talking about. First of all, let's take a look as well at the Xanathar's Guide. So this is the Xanathar's Guide. This is the cover for this alternate art cover Xanathar's Guide, the special edition of the rules expansion gives that. And again, same thing. Content isn't too dissimilar. Content's pretty much the same as the original Xanathar's Guide, but lovely cover. Got our namesake Xanathar here together with Silkar in Xanathar is obviously walking his goldfish. So there we go. And of course, yes, this is the book. This is the book. And of course, this was available if you had purchased the rules expansion gift set really early on. And it's got a lovely Kirin in the cover. So lots of cool stuff. For those of you who might have already purchased this early on as well, you will have discovered that there are a lot more character races. And of course, if you are playing in Adventurous League, these new reprinted race options are now available for play. And you can use them if you wish. And at the same time, there are some, if you are a Dungeon Craft writer, and you wish to use some of the content from Monsters of the Multiverse, there are some updated stat blocks. And there are obviously some differences in the stat blocks, some differences in the character art as well. And we'll be looking more at that as we go along later on, because some of the art from the Magic the Gathering sets for Magic have made their way into some of the content. And we'll be looking at more of the stuff later on as well. So stuff like this is cool, isn't it? This is really nice. This is a lovely piece of artwork as an example. And I would love to talk more about this as we go through the details for Monsters of the Multiverse and how to use it. Hey there! Good to have you. Welcome. We're just chatting about Monsters of the Multiverse's latest book for D&D, and this is from the special alt art version of the rules expansion gift set. So lovely collection here. Comes with Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's. So I'm just going to put everything back together and put them back in the slipcase so that nothing gets out of place and nothing gets damaged by my clumsy self, because we all know that's going to happen, right? And here we go. So this is the DM screen that comes with the set as well, and the slipcase, which is here, which I am going to be putting together. And slide this all back into the notes. Lovely set of books here. And of course, if you are interested in getting a rules expansion gift set of your own, if you want to get a rules expansion gift set of your own, feel free to check out our Shopee store. We have some of the rules expansion gift sets listed as well on our Shopee, and you can grab a copy of your own if you wish. So come check that out if you like. And with that, shall we get started looking at some of the stat blocks? So put that aside for now. So can put that to us. Put that away, and let's take a look at Monsters of the Multiverse. So here we go. So we're going to be doing a bit of a read through tonight for Monsters of the Multiverse, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can use Monsters of the Multiverse to our advantage, both as dungeon masters as well as creators of D&D content. And that's going to be part of the plan for tonight. So we'll be chatting a little bit about that. And if you're ever interested in asking questions about, what are some of the differences and stuff like that, I'll be happy to talk about it. So first things first, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit so that it's easier to see. I hope that this is better. So Monsters of the Multiverse is full of monsters, for want of a better word, right? And I'm going to just run you all through the index for the time being. So we're going to take a look at the index, and we're going to have lots of new, well, I guess, rehashed races. Some of these races appeared in Volos, and we're going to see some changes to these races. The Harangon and the Fairy were available in Well Beyond the Witchlight, and they also made it here. We have things like the Satyr as well. The Satyr was originally published in Theros, I think, if I recall correctly. Centaur as well. And there are a couple of interesting variations that are now going to become playable races, and that is really, really cool. So we're going to be looking at that in brief as we go along. And I know some of you might be familiar with things like the Aarakocra, which was a real popular pick sometime in Season 7 for Adventurers League. And it's generally a pretty popular race for people who want to play bird people with innate flying speed. Yeah, so of course we also have quite a lot of monsters listed in the bestiary. There's a whole ton of monsters. Some of them are reprints, and some of them, all of them have been updated in Monsters of the Multiverse. A lot of changes were made, some for the better, some not so great, but overall, I think the most important thing is that Monsters of the Multiverse makes things a lot easier and more accessible for DMs, especially DMs who might get overwhelmed when they see so much content on the stat block. So we're gonna take a look at some of the stat blocks later on as well. Let's see what we can pick out that might be interesting for us to run in a typical adventure, or if we were to think about building and developing content as a DM, as a writer. Yeah, so we have a whole ton of stat blocks to go through later on. We're going to chat about them. But first things first, let's take a look at some of the fantastical races as depicted here in Monsters of the Multiverse. And one of the biggest things you will discover is that Monsters of the Multiverse gets rid of fixed ability scores for various races. So you don't get penalties to your ability scores anymore, and your ability scores are kind of floating in that sense. You can either increase one ability score by 2 and another one by 1, or increase 3 different scores by 1. So this is a new, I guess this is a new adjustment. So this is something new that I think a lot of Adventurers League players are going to be really happy about, and a lot of players who play in home games are going to probably be happy about as well, because this gives you more room for customization. And this is great. So for another thing for monstrous races now is that you get your pick of common as your default language and one other language that you and your DM agree is appropriate. So you now get the option of customizing the language that your character starts with as well. And by default, because you know common, this is not going to cause any further discrepancies or problems when your party is trying to talk to each other. You know, despite you having a monstrous character, or a character of a race that's not commonly played, that's not in the core rulebooks. And this is going to be very helpful because having a common language is going to be really important for your characters to be able to communicate with one another at the table and to communicate with the NPCs that you come across as well. So on top of that, um, we're going to be looking at some of the changes. So we're going to just scroll down real quick. So there's a little lore. Not going to worry so much about lore. So Aarakocra were first available, if I recall, in volumes. This is old volumes. And let me see if I'm not mistaken. I think they were here in volumes. I might be mistaken. I can't remember where it was from. But regardless, Aarakocra are changed a little bit right now because in the past they used to have not so great walking speed. If I remember correctly, they had 25 feet walking speed and their flying speed was 50 feet, which was pretty good. But now I think now that they have changed it a little bit, your flying speed is equal to your walking speed by default. And of course, you can't use that when you're wearing medium or heavy armor, which I think is not too much of a change. And looking at this as well, it looks like your talent damage has increased. It's now 1d6 instead of, I think, 1d4. So this is not bad. And the gust of wind ability is kind of cool. So now you can use this ability. If you have spell slots, you can cast it as well. So you can use a second level spell slot or higher to cast this ability as well. Otherwise, you can cast it once without using a material components, which is default pretty okay inbuilt ability for a Aarakocra. So this is decently strong. And you get to pick your spellcasting ability for this when you select a race. Aasimar are also pretty much improved, I believe, from looking at the details casually a while ago. And this is kind of fun. This is one of the more interesting things about it because in the past we had some rather different approaches to their special abilities, like when you pick your type of Aasimar. I also noticed, I think from the looks of it, that your light cantrip now is based off charisma. It might have been based off charisma in the past, but this is now definitely based off charisma. Let me just check to be sure. I have a list somewhere of. Just check this as well. This is follows. This is interesting to see. Aasimar, page 104. So in the past, you had to pick sub-races for Aasimar. But now you have something called Celestial Revelation, I guess, which makes it slightly easier and more accessible to everyone, easier to understand as well. And now that I think about it, your healing hands heals a number of dice equal to your proficiency bonus, which is a bit of an increase, I think, that scales fairly well. I think that this is pretty nice for especially for early game, like when you start with proficiency bonus of 2, so you already get you get 2d4 to heal, which is not bad. And from the looks of it, you can use a bonus action to use your Celestial Revelation, which is not bad. Because if I recall correctly, and looking at this in the past, it was an action. So now you get to use a bonus action for this, which is pretty nice, I would say. And it's of course on long rest, which is pretty standardized. And from the looks of it, I think there is a slight damage increase. Looks like there's a slight damage, and the extra damage equals your proficiency bonus, which is not bad. I think that this base in the past it was for some of these things equal to your level. So I think this changes a little bit in terms of the overall damage potential you do, but you get to do it a little bit more often, which I think is not too bad. Yep, so they have reduced the damage a little bit, made this a bonus action. So I guess at lower levels it's a little better, and it's not so great at higher levels, but it is still fairly usable. And they have kind of standardized it so that when you do damage to a type of spell, Radiant Soul is still probably the best choice, as always. A Bugbear is a humanoid, also a goblinoid, medium speed, walking speed is 30 feet, dark vision, Fey Ancestry. I think this is a new addition to Bugbears. And this gives you the opportunity to avoid the charmed condition, which is nice. Of course, Bugbears, they retain their reach ability, and their build is large, which is nice. And the surprise attack is pretty fun. So I would say that Bugbear, as a playable character now, is a little bit more buffed, I think. And surprise attack is pretty strong now because this kind of works if it hasn't taken a turn yet, which means that you can run this with a Doomstalker and you could potentially do a bit more damage, especially in the first turn of combat, if they haven't taken their turn yet in the combat, and that would be pretty good. I also like the fact that your sneaky gives you not only just a stealth skill, but also allows you to move through and stop in a space large enough for a small creature without squeezing. So this is actually quite interesting. Centaur is another one of those races. I would say that is interesting to see here because you now finally get to play a Centaur. Has a lot of relatively useful racial abilities, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like the hooves also got their damage kind of buffed. So it's now 1d6, which I think is pretty nice. Yeah, so this is actually not too bad. And of course, this being available for players is a great thing, right? So you can tend to play something a little bit more different. Changeling, let me see. I think the Changeling was not a Fae before, but now they're a Fae, which makes things a little different. And being a Fae means that they are somewhat unaffected by certain spells, which is nice. And from the looks of it, you can change your height and weight and your size between medium and small. This is a little different, I think. And I think in the past you were limited to just medium-sized creature. Now it's a small creature, so this is not bad at all. Okay, let's let out some demons, gnomes, and dwarves. So this looks interesting for me. Cast Disguise Self, cast Non-Detection. I think these are quite beneficial and they're very in keeping with these Swift. So these are nice. Swift Camouflage, Stealth check with advantage, number of times equal to proficiency bonus. So this is pretty nice as well. A lot of things scale up proficiency bonus now for characters. And I think this is a new design direction that they're taking, and this is great because having that opportunity to do things using proficiency bonus really allows for character benefits to scale, better across the board and adds the longevity of the ability. So this is really good. Durgar, dwarves, humanoids. Is there anything interesting here that I might have missed? Psionic Fortitude. You have advantage of saving throws you make to avoid or add the charm and stun condition on yourself. And this is actually really strong. Especially since being stunned is something that can happen a lot, especially at higher levels. And having advantage on that save can mean the difference between being locked down by Psychic Scream or not. So I think this is really helpful. I've also noticed that most dwarves and, well, most small races, I think their walking speed has been buffed up to 30 feet. So it's now 30 feet instead of 25. So they're able to move 6 squares, which is nice. It's a bit of a difference. Ladrin, we looked at this a while. Let's take a look at this. Ancestry, face stab. So they can magically teleport. So I think the face stab has increased the number of uses as well. It's now proficiency modifier, so this is nice. This is really good. And I think that there are now some more. Yep, so there we go. There's another thing here that becomes proficiency bonus. So this is also scaling a little bit better. So I think I like this direction that they're taking with the new race adjustments. Very. Let's see. So this doesn't look like it's changed much at all from Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I don't think. Furbolg, humanoid, medium, walking speed 30 feet. Hidden stab as a bonus action, turn magically invisible until your next turn or your next attack. You can use this trait number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So this has become proficiency bonus as well, I think, which makes it a little bit more powerful. And you can basically get more uses out. To the so all our elementalish creatures. Genasi, genocide, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. I think one of the biggest differences is that all of them now have dark vision, which is nice, which is really, really cool. And this makes it even more valuable to play them because who doesn't want to play an elemental-ish creature, like an elemental-ish character, right? So I recall that the air type didn't have Shocking Grasp before, and now they have, which is a great addition. And this gives them an attacking cantrip right out the bat. And this is very in keeping. I think this is very flavorful. And, oh, their walking speed has increased slightly as well, so this is nice. This makes playing an air type actually beneficial and fun now. Uh, Earth, let me see. Earth-wise, Earth walk, you can move across DT without expending extra movement if you're using the walking speed on the ground or floor. Okay, this kind of makes sense. Uh, Blade Ward, I think, is a new addition. And yeah, this is not bad. So they have a bit more flavor now. There's a bit more flavor and a bit of extra flavorful cantrip. Fire, produce spins the same. I don't think there's anything significantly changed for fire. Let me just check to be sure. This is curious. I think this was a Skag. Um, I don't recall if they had Flame Blade before. I'm pretty sure they had Burning Hands. I don't play them a lot clearly, but this is if this is a new addition, I think this is pretty cool. And water, let's see, swimming speed equal to your walking speed, so this is okay. Um, Acid Splash, I think is pretty new. So this is a new addition. They have that, that gives them the attack spell. This is nice. I like this. I like the idea of them having the attack spell as a cantrip. This is a great addition. And let's see. So give Yankee and give Shargaas. Let's take a look at this. I think Astral Knowledge is new. It feels new to me. Let me see if it's... Was it in Mords? Wow, I'm referring to all the books right now. Like, in a hurry, like super fast. Let me see. Give. There we go. Give Yankee, give Zerai. 85 in Mords. And what is their... Racial bonus, racial bullies. Come on. Where is it? Give characters. Give Yankee didn't have astral knowledge before, I don't think. And this basically lets you, every time you finish a long rest, you get proficiency in one skill of your choice and one weapon or tool of your choice, which is lovely. This is a great utility ability that I think is a nice addition. Psychic resilience, yeah, resistance to psychic damage. I don't think they had psychic damage resistance before, but now they do. So this is very flavorful and very appropriate as well. Of course, they lost a couple of things as well. I think they lost like Decadent Mastery and Martial Prodigy as part of that, but that's probably okay. In turn for the utility of getting more, I guess, more versatility in what they pick at the start of every day. So let's see, Dibs Arai. Nothing too different. Still have their Gives the right psionics instead of their mental discipline, but what they get here that's a bonus is psychic resistance as well. So this psychic resistance is a pretty nice addition, I would say. So fun stuff, I guess, was added for them, and I would love to play a Give Zerai, Give Yankee at some point in time. I think that they will make great characters, especially for the upcoming Spelljammer stories. I would love to play one of them in Spelljammer because it's so flavorful. It's very thematically appropriate because they, after all, they are pretty much creatures and from outer space. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Goblin is another one of the races that got changed out a little bit. Fey Ancestry, this looks new. This is something that I don't recall them ever having. Fury of the Small deals damage equal to proficiency bonus. So this is a bit of a change in terms of damage that you get out of that, but you get to use it. more times. You get to use it equal to your proficiency bonus, which is not bad at all. So I think goblins are actually going to be more annoying now, and more, or rather more fun to play. I don't know. It depends on what kind of goblin you want to be. Let's see. Next chapter. Next chapter. Come on. Next chapter. More. Wow. So many other races. Goliath. I'm kind of curious about this. Goliath. It's kind of difficult for me to try to remember everything. I think Stone's endurance got increased to number of proficiency bonus, which is nice. So this gives you more durability, makes you a little bit more tanky. And I think Little Giant is a rehash of some of their abilities that were kind of like, joined together. So they have the proficiency in athletics, they become one size larger. So they probably just simplified that and made it one new ability right here. Harangun were super powerful in Well Beyond the Witchlight. I'm not going to talk too much about that. And I don't think anything has changed with Harangun. So that's good. Hobgoblins. Hobgoblins have Fey ancestry. Hey Zardak, yep, happy Monday to you as well. Thanks for dropping in. We're just going through Monsters Multiverse and talking about some of the changes, and later on when I look at some of the monster stat blocks, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can use some of the new adjustments. So here we are. Hobgoblins, Fey Ancestry. This is new, I think, and also kind of useful. Fey Gift. I don't think I have seen Hobgoblins with this ability before. Oh, you just got the book on Fantasy Grounds? Nice. What do you think about the book? We just did a bit of an unboxing a while ago of our rules expansion gift set that came to us from Wizards of the Coast, and we're also now talking about it, looking at what we have on our D&D Beyond. So I think Hobgoblins have a bit of changes, like a significant number of changes, I think. Fey Gift uses trait to take the help action as a bonus action, and you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So this is kind of like a little bit like the Mastermind's ability, I think, because you're using the help action as a bonus action, and there are some extra abilities here that you can use as an option each time you take the help action in this trait. So you get to give temporary hit points, which is nice, or you get to increase walking speed, which is also nice. You can, I guess, help cause the target to have disadvantage on their attack as well, which is also very nice. And wait, what? Oh, saving face is gone. Hey, that was one of the cool things about Hobgoblins, saving face. And I mean, I kind of liked it. It felt very much like it was very culturally appropriate for us in Singapore, saving face. But I think they have changed the name, and it's now called Fortune from the Many. It's now Fortune from the Many. So and you can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So I guess rather than feeling embarrassed and trying to make an excuse and make yourself look cooler, you now ask your friends to cheer you on. So I guess it's not that bad. I guess flavor-wise, it's kind of a little different, but it's also kind of cool. So I'm not too finicky about that. So yeah, this is kind of alright. I think it's definitely stronger because you get to use it more often. But I still like the name Saving Face more. It felt much more Chinese for me. Yeah, Hobgoblin Mastermind is going to be super fun because you can help here and help here and there and everywhere. Kanku. So we just messed around with a lot of Kanku in some of our uh, adventures in the past 2 weeks. We were running Dragon Heist, and some of our players really loved what we did with the Kanku. And let's take a look at what we have with Kanku. Are there any significant changes? I think this looks a little different. Yes, the Kanku minis were great, and Jazin did an amazing job with those Kanku minis. If I could get my paws on them, I would take them out and show them on screen. Yes, Jazin says do not drop them. Can you see this Kanku mini? This is awesome, isn't it? This is a very lovely Kanku mini over here. I hope it focuses. Focus, focus. Can you see that? Kanku mini. Another Kanku mini over here. So cool. And this one as well. So some awesome Kanku minis, thanks to Jazia, who put in a lot of effort to get some of our lovely miniatures sorted out for the table, and it's fantastic. So exciting to always play with those cool miniatures at the table. So Kanku, I think forgery has been changed a little bit. If I am not mistaken, I think forgery has been changed. And it's now called expert duplication. And I like the idea that Kanku Recall gives you proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. And you can give yourself advantage a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So this is kind of awesome. And I have a feeling, looking at this, that at this point, Kenku are no longer limited to mimicking the words of people, because it seems like they have now turned it into a special ability. And I guess they might have gotten rid of the limitation on Kenku where they can only speak by mimicking other people, which was part of the fun of role-playing at Kenku. And it was exasperating for people trying to interrogate a Kenku, which is lovely. So I think this has changed a little bit, so might be quite different now if you are ever playing a Kenku. So mimicry was super challenging. I agree, I absolutely agree. And I think that now that they've taken out the restriction where it says that you can only speak by mimicking, this makes being a Kenku so much easier for players. For Kobold, I know a lot of people love playing Kobolds for various reasons, one of them being pack tactics, and the other one being the groveling ability. And from the looks of it, I don't see pack tactics anywhere. Instead, it's become an ability, I think, called Draconic Cry. Until you start your next turn, you and your allies have advantage in attack rolls against any of those enemies who can hear you. So I guess this is where, you get a kobold running around going, Recognition! And then everyone gets a shock, and you get advantage to beat them up. And this can be used a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, which is kind of not bad. Kobold Legacy, you get to choose one of the legacy options, and this gives you a bit more versatility as well in what you want to pick. So you gotta pick some of your skill choices here, or you have some other abilities. like a cantrip, which is nice. I think that these are interesting additions to the kobold that makes it more in line with their draconic heritage, rather than making them look like some terrible, miserable little thing that grovels at the earliest opportunity. And from the looks of it, they are no longer affected by sunlight, which is nice, I think, because that used to be a problem in the past. So kobolds can be kind of interesting to play now, and a little bit stronger. Yeah, for sure. Okay, lizard folk. Let me see. Lizard folk, humanoid. Your medium walking speed is 30 feet. Your swimming speed, bite. Okay, the bite does 1d6. This is piercing, or it has become slashing damage. It used to be piercing, if I recall, because a lot of the time, bite attacks used to deal piercing damage. Hold breath. Okay. Hungry jaws. Gain temporary hit points equal to proficiency bonus. So this scales slightly better, I guess. And you can use this number of times equal to your proficiency bonus as well. Did anyone play with sunlight sensitivity? I would say that some DMs do, and I know for a fact that in Adventurers League, it could get a bit thorny as well if you were in outdoor environments because of time. But most of the time, if you were in underground or if you were indoors, you're probably okay. So Hungry Jaws, I think, gets a little bit more use out of this. So Lizard Folk are pretty okay now, and that inbuilt bite attack is really really handy. Uh, so yeah, Minotaur. I know someone who would love to play a cow, and I think that she'll be very happy to know that she can be a cow now in most adventures because cows are now commonplace. Just cowish things. Um, so yeah, unarmed strike. So this is decent. And let me see, is there anything that's been added? Um, this looks like it's new. Labyrinthine Recall. Advantage and wisdom survival checks to make the navigator track. So this is useful. So you could probably be a Minotaur ranger, like a cow ranger or something. And it just brings to mind that horrible video that I saw recently about if you have ever seen that video by the guy that did the chicken attack song, they did a cow attack song, and there was a cow ninja in it, and I was, oh my god. Yes. Dangerous cow monster creatures, player characters. Cows are dangerous. You could run into them and you'll never know the difference. Oh, and this is a very, very lovely picture of an orc. So this is very, very well designed. Fantastic. Look at that. It's an orc spellcaster. So orcs, medium sized, yeah. Adrenaline Rush, I think, is a new ability. You can take the dash action as a bonus action. This is nice. And you can use it number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. And when you use this trait, you get THP equal to your province. Oh wow. This makes orcs kind of strong. So this is actually pretty powerful. Relentless Endurance. So this is the half orc ability as well. So the half orcs had this, the one where you reduce 0 hit points, but you're not killed. You get to drop the 1 hit point. So orcs are kind of good in Mordenkainen's, well, Mordenkainen presents Monsters and Multiverse. So this is quite powerful. And I think that playing an orc now is going to be super fun. So this is something to explore if you're ever planning to play an orc character. So it's kind of neat. Satyr, um, hairy goat person, if you ever want to be one. Your Fae. The ram damage is now 1d6. I guess they might have fixed it by default to make all natural attacks that are part of your race a d6, which is nice. It gives you the extra little bit of damage right there that will be beneficial to you as a character. So you're always able to deal some damage, which is nice, whether you have a weapon or not. And d6 is by default a fairly reasonable amount of damage to deal with a basic attack. Advantage on saving throws against spells. Okay, this is not bad. I think this might be a little bit of a change in the text. I need to go check my Theros book for that. Sea Elf. From what I can tell, this is new. Resistance to cold damage. I don't recall them being resistant to cold damage. So this is a first, I think. This is new. So that's not bad. So this is reasonably decent. I don't think anything else significant changed with the Sea Elves. Shadow Kai, Shadowfell Elves. I love the art. Blessing of the Raven Queen. This is a teleport ability, and I think now they get to use it a number of times equal to proc bonus. So this is an increase in the number of uses. So this is pretty good, I guess. So this is kind of stronger. Shifter, I guess shifters are pretty much similar to what they were as they were presented in Aberon. Let's see, Bestial Instincts. Proficiency wonder skills. Okay, so this might be new. I need to check. Shifting, of course, this is nice. As always, shifting is beneficial, the THP. And you get to pick your subclass as a shifter, or sub-race as a shifter by default. And you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency mod bonus on a long rest, of course. And from the looks of it, I think the temporary hit points change to 2 times your proficiency bonus instead, which is slightly less, I would say, than the previous bonus for temporary hit points. So shifters, I think overall, you might get a little bit more temporary hit points when you do your shifting ability. Yeah, and that's great, right? So now shifters are available for Forgotten Realms, and that's nice, because I've always wanted to play a shifter and pretend to be a werewolf character and all that. So now I can in AL. And yeah, this is kind of cool, but I think you get less temporary hit points overall, though you get to use this more often. So I guess it kind of balances out. Beast height, additional THP. Yeah, long tooth. When you shift it as a bonus action on your turns, other turns while shifted, you can use your elongated fangs to make an arm strike. So you get a bonus action filler. So long tooth is actually pretty good now. This is a bonus action filler. So this is kind of strong. A Swift Strike kind of same. Wild Time's kind of the same. Yeah, so Long Tooth is probably going to be the default DPS spec if you ever want to be a shifter because of the bonus action filler here. Um, Tabaxi changes. Are there any significant changes to Tabaxi? Speed. So yeah, walking speed, climbing speed equal to walking speed. Okay, cat's claws. The buff here is D4 to D6. Um, Not too bad, I would say. You're going beast fight monk. Huh, interesting choice. I was gonna go long tooth psychic warrior or something because that's what I used to play werewolf psychic warrior in third edition. So if I ever want to build the character here in fifth edition in Forgotten Realms, that could kind of work. Turtles finally they get published in a book instead of being in the Turtle book of their own. Uh, yeah, claw damage 1d6. So they've kind of changed it. So I guess definitely across the board, everything for inbuilt unarmed strikes from a race is now 1d6, which is not too bad. So not a whole lot has changed for them from the looks of it. From the looks of it, yeah, I don't think much has changed for a turtle other than the claw bonus. Well, you're medium or small. I guess you could change your class, or rather your size now, because it used to be, I think, medium only for turtles. Now you can change your size a little bit. Triton, walking speed equals, and your swimming speed is equal to your walking speed. Okay. So I had some NPCs I made that were Tritons for some of the adventurous stories that I published. So I'm kind of curious what might have changed for this, because this is kind of interesting. Oh, in water walk. Okay, this is a little different. I think this is a little different. It used to be some other spell. Um, yeah, that's about it. Yuan-Ti, I think Yuan-Ti are one of the more popular. Small turtle would be like a plushie, I guess. The important thing is that the turtle made it to the water, right? Um, Yuan-Ti are interesting because there were a lot of shenanigans involving Yuan-Ti in the past. So I'm curious to see. So they can choose to be medium or small. Okay, so that's nice. Um, Magic resistance, dark vision, poison resilience. Poison resilience looks a little different from the past. I think they were they immune to poison before? I think they were. So there we go. Let's check the book again. I thought they were. They were immune. Yeah, that's what I thought. And now they are not immune. They are not immune, and they have become resistant, but they can end the poison condition with advantage, which is not bad, I guess. But they are no longer as powerful as they were in the past. Serpentine spell casting, poison spray, blah blah blah. I don't think any of these have changed. So the biggest change here is that they are no longer immune to poison. I think there were some adjustments to the wording for magic resistance as well. But yeah, so all in all, I think that the race adjustments are generally for the better. And I'm kind of appreciative of the fact that there were so many adjustments that were made, and generally these made the races more fun to play, more accessible, and definitely a lot easier to fit into a party, especially with the addition of common being a common language for everyone, among other things. So overall, I would say that if I were to if I were to build new characters or if I were to allow the use of these characters and these races as options for the players, I wouldn't be surprised because they're all a lot more balanced as well, I would say. And the shift of moving things up to proficiency bonus times and scaling things off proficiency bonus as well means that they're pretty okay in the early game and they get a little better, maybe along mid game, and it just kind of tails off at end game. But at end game, you should be relying on your class abilities anyway. Sad about Aarakocra, I would say yes. A little bit sad about the Aarakocra losing, 20 feet of movement speed for flying, because they used to have a 50-foot flying speed, which was really nice. They were the fastest flyers ever. And you could do so many crazy things with an Aarakocra in the past because of the 50-foot flying speed. And if you had built it and stacked it a certain way, you could swoop in, grab someone, fly 200 feet into the air in one round, and then drop them, and they'll take falling damage and die. But, you can't do that as much anymore. But hey, I guess it's a bit of a trade-off. But Aarakocra are still kind of fun. So, across the board, I think any special movement is now pegged to your walking speed on your race, which I think is a fair design goal and a fair design principle for when they're trying to balance the races. And same goes for swimming speed and climbing speed and all that as well. So I guess it's you win some, you lose some. But I'm definitely excited about the new Orc and maybe the new Kobold and the new Hobgoblin. I guess it's not too bad. You loved your Artificer Aarakocra with Torn Whip. Yeah, I think that was a lovely, lovely way of building the Aarakocra as well, for sure. Fly around, whip people, hook them into the air and drop them. And they'll fall prone, and you can beat them up. Or drop a dexterity saving throw spell on them and laugh at them when they're on the ground. Alright, so we have taken a look at the race options. I think these are great. These are really fun. Let's go back to the table of contents for a bit and let's take a look at some of the adjustments to the monsters. And one of the first things that comes to mind is I'm going to look at my wizards, right? Because I love writing wizards into my adventures. A lot of the adventures that I've created use wizards as enemies. And from the looks of it, these are some adjustments to the stat blocks in the back of Volos. So in Volos, there were some specialized stat blocks for humanoid spellcasters and humanoid NPCs. And these have definitely changed from what I can tell in Monsters of the Multiverse. So instead of having spell slots and prepared spells, your NPC stat blocks, many of them now have fixed actions, and I think some of them for the better. Like if you look at the Apprentice Wizard as an example, you now have a default Arcane Burst attack, which is a 120-foot force-based attack. So you can use it in melee or range, and you can deal 7 points of force damage, which is not bad at all. It's pretty strong. And it's a single target, but this makes the Apprentice Wizard a bit more of a credible threat, I would think, for something that's, CR 1/4. So this is not too bad. And the Apprentice Wizard also has spellcasting. And this is certainly a whole lot better than if you were to look at the old Apprentice Wizard. So the old Apprentice Wizard was terrible and had a basic attack as an action, which was a dagger attack. So that's not great. You throw your dagger and you're gone. There goes your dagger. But now you get your default Arcane Burst. So the Apprentice Wizard is still kind of useful and is capable of dishing out a hurt with a melee attack as well. Don't have to worry about casting spells at close range. And of course, that kind of replaces your Firebolt, I think, because they used to have Firebolt as a cantrip. So you still have, and they also replaced the not so useful Mending that was in the stat block with Mage Hand. So you get Mage Hand and Prestidigitation, which are kind of sensible. Yep, and if you look at it, this apprentice kind of looks a little bit like a. I guess if you change the color of the robe, this could potentially look a little bit like Luke Skywalker. So he's using the Force, Arcane Burst, Mage Hand, Prestige. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Um, spells once per day each. So they changed it, so it's no longer 2 spell slots. So your spell casting is a little different now. And I think that this is something we'll see a lot more commonly in all the various stat blocks for the NPCs. So you're going to see things like Burning Hands, Disguise Self, Mage Armor, usable once per day. So they lose Shield in place of Mage Armor. And that Mage Armor is going to go up here and bump up their AC to 13, which is not the greatest. But that's probably alright because these apprentices can all stay far, far away, point their wands at someone, and hope that they hit with a +4 to deal 7 points of force damage. And if you stack 20 apprentices all together, they can still take down a not so powerful player character who might be up to no good in a magic school. So that kind of works. Abjurers are greatly changed, just as all the other spellcasting wizard subclasses are greatly changed as well. So their AC 15 with Mage Armor, yeah, not too much of a difference. The hit points went up a fair bit for the Abjurer, and I think this is nice. So they can now make 3 Arcane Burst attacks. Look at that. This is slightly more powerful. So a lot of their attack spells have been taken away and replaced with special attacks. So you now have a fairly powerful force damage attack, in fact. It's a +8 to hit that does 3d10 +4 force damage. Arcane Burst. You can use this 3 times using multi-attack. So this is pretty strong. Alternatively, you can make a Force Blast, which is an AoE attack that does 8d8 damage and pushes 10 feet away from the Abjurer. So this is pretty strong. It's a knockback, 20 foot originating from the Abjurer. So this is like a mini thunder wave of some sort. Still quite powerful. And of course you have spells. Admittedly not so great because they're once per day each for the more powerful ones like Globe of Invul and Invul Force. But you get to have 2 lightning bolts as well. So you can toss your 2 lightning bolts and laugh at them. And Arcane Ward is now a reaction instead of a static ability. And this is kind of strong. I have to say that the Arcane Ward as a reaction is a little stronger because instead of having a static 30 hit point ward that gets recharged when they cast a spell, you can use this as a reaction. So this replaces your lack of the shield spell. As you can see, you don't have shield on your spellcasting list, but your Arcane Ward can serve to protect your Abjurer instead, and it recharges in 4 to 6. So there's a 50% chance at the start of each of the Abjurer's turns that you can get your Arcane Ward back. So this is kind of stronger, and I would say that this is not bad at all. So I'm gonna look at another wizard, and this one is probably gonna be my favorite. It's a Diviner. So the Diviner is not to be underestimated because they are powerful portent, and their portent is now a little different. They get 3 per day. And this is a reaction. Whereas in the past, you had only 1 and it recharges when you cast a divination spell. Now you get to use it 3 per day. So this is actually not too bad. Admittedly, they are not as strong, not as powerful, they have less attack spells, but they also have this slightly nasty ability called Overwhelming Revelation, where they can create an AoE, an attack that does psychic damage, which is pretty decent, and stuns until the end of the Diviner's next turn. And of course, this will work nicely with the portent ability as well. So this can be rather nasty when used appropriately. And of course, they also get their Arcane Burst ability to make 3 Arcane Burst attacks. So Diviners are super fun. Now that you have some adjustments and they have slightly better damage dealing capabilities. Of course, personally, I would say I sort of missed the benefits of being a spellcaster with a spell list. Why? Because I loved picking, mixing, and matching my spells so that I could mess around with spells and do whatever I wanted with those spells. But I guess these adjustments are not the worst. And definitely, I think for, DMs who might get easily overwhelmed because they're not so familiar with spells, not so familiar with stat blocks, how to run spellcasters, these adjustments to spellcaster stat blocks are helpful. I think these are quite beneficial for them because it simplifies how to run these monsters. And of course, the added advantage is that with some of these abilities, like Overwhelming Revelation and stuff like that, these are special abilities, so they cannot be counterspelled. So that's also part of the fun. Take a quick look at the Evoker now. So the Evoker, same thing, slightly more powerful now. The Evoker's CR has actually gone up. The Evoker in the past was also CR9, but from the looks of it, not as. This is slightly more powerful, I would say. They have more hit points over here. As you can see, that hit points are now 121. So this is incredibly high for a spellcaster. In fact, it's almost twice of their previous hit points. So they used to have only 66 hit points. And now, of course, they can do their Arcane Burst, slightly more damage, 25 points of damage instead of 20. Plus 7 to hit. Sculpted Explosion does a damage of a particular type, so you can pick. And they can select up to 3 creatures that will ignore the explosion. So you can use this and blast your enemies and save your friends. And it does 40 points of damage of the chosen type and not prone. So this is pretty strong as well, because when you combine this with some melee mooks or some attackers that are capable of using the prone status of the player characters to their advantage, this is going to be good. So you can have your Evoker blasting the party from the back, knocking them down off their feet as they fall to the ground. You can have all the golems, the shield guardians, whatever, coming up and wailing away other characters. So more attack spells. 2 per day, Ice Storm, Lightning Bolt. I don't see a Fireball, which is a bit sad. You would think an Evoker would have a Fireball. But Wall of Ice is pretty nasty as well. So if you want to use that in the right circumstances, Wall of Ice is pretty cool. Yeah, so these are some of the wizards. Of course, there are more wizard types, and you can take a look at them freely as when you dig through Mordenkainen Presents Monsters in the Multiverse yourself. Look at the Warlord now, just a little bit. The Warlord is another NPC character that has few things, I guess, slightly modified, a little different from the past. Let me see if there are any significant changes. Indomitable is still the same. Rerolls and saves. Must use a new roll. Survivor regains 10 hit points to start his turn. Multi-attack, 2 greatsword or short bow attacks. So you can pick, yeah, so this is just wording changes. Legendary actions, weapon attack. So command ally, so this is, I think it's the same. Don't see it being different. Weapon attack, frightened foe. So other than some wording differences, I think the Warlord is more or less unchanged. So this is not too bad. It's more or less the same as it was in Volumes. I'm curious about the Warlocks now. Warlock of the Archfey. Are there changes to the Warlock of the Archfey? AC is 13, okay. 16 with Mage Armor, so obviously the AC has increased. Dexterity is increased with the Archfey Warlock. So that's not bad. 67 hit points. The hit points have gone up as well. Multi-attack makes 2 rapier attacks or uses Bewildering Word twice. So Bewildering Word is a new special ability, and it's kind of like a not so great Vicious Mockery, I guess. Yeah, the rapier does some piercing at 4 damage. Okay, it's not the worst. And of course their challenge rating is still 4, so they're not the most scary. And of course, the spellcasting ability has been changed a little bit, so they get more useful at will of magic spells, and well, Mage Armor being one of them, which is nice. They had it in the past as well. And once per day, Charm Person, Dimension Door, Hold monsters. They have less spells they know now. But Hold Monster is still useful. Dimension Door is great for escape, and Charm Person is the escape, not too different. It's interesting, right, to see how much has changed for some of them. And of course, for the Warlocks, definitely a lot less spell options, which are not great. And the same for the Wizards. And I would say probably for the War Priest as well, and the Archdruids and whatever. The changes mean less versatility. It seems that everything's kind of locked into combat mode. But maybe that's also because they want these monster stat blocks to be used for combat rather than for utility, which is something I don't really agree with. I feel kind of sad about that because I love my utility on my NPC spellcasters. So I would say this is a bit of a mixed bag for me when it comes to spellcasters. But I do appreciate the fact that they added some, attacking options for spellcasters rather than having them, use an attack quarterstaff or attack dagger, which is not so great. So they're a bit more flavorful now, but they do lose a bit as well. Let's take a look at the War Priest real quick. Yeah, so they get attack, they get the multi attack, 2 maul attacks, and then uses Holy Fire, so you get to hit with a stick, and then you cast your Holy Light on people, and zap them and blind them, which is nice. And you get less options for your spells. But Flame Strike is still strong. Flame Strike is generally good. Banishment is still strong. Guardian of Faith is probably alright. Well, you get your Lesser Restore and Revivify as well, which is useful, I guess. And you get bonus action healing light 2 per day. So they have an inbuilt bonus action pseudo healing word of their own, which is not too bad. It's a ranged heal, so that has its uses. But yeah, interesting enough, I would say. So let's take a look at other monsters in the bestiary, shall we? Let's jump back to our index. I'm gonna take a quick pick of the monsters here. Let's see if there's anything that stands out that we haven't seen before. Ogres of War. This looks interesting, and I think this is fairly new. I don't recall seeing Ogres of War before. And this is kind of cool. So you have Ogre variants. Didn't we have Ogre variants in the past? I don't think so. I don't see any Ogre variants in the Follows Guide, or I don't think there are any in the Mordecai. There's, let's see, Ogre Battering Ram, Ogre Bolt Launcher. Okay, so there were some Ogre variants here in Mordenkainen's. Let's see if there are any significant changes. I've hardly used Ogre variants, so this is interesting. Ogre battering ram, so AC. There were some changes. I was right. Um, the armor class is lower for the Ogre battering ram for sure, but the hit points have gone up. And from the looks of it, they are pretty much dealing the same amount of damage. So I guess there were some reductions or adjustments here. Ogre bolt launcher. Yeah, I guess there were some minor adjustments here and there for some of the chain brute, chain smash. So there are some adjustments, obviously, to one or two of the stat entries. This is interesting. So Ogre Howdah AC has gone up. So it's now got a shield in addition to the breastplate. And the damage has changed a little bit. It's no longer a mace, but a fist. So there are some minor adjustments that they made to the stat blocks that were not immediately obvious and would probably have not been immediately obvious unless you were paying very close attention to these things. So Multiverses, which are also some of my favorite. Were there any significant changes to the Oblats? I think not so much. Yeah, I don't think so. But one of the things I'm very curious about, and it's one of my favorite monsters, it's called a Nightwalker. So I'm gonna see if there were any changes to the Nightwalker as well. Looking at the Nightwalker here, it's obvious that the old Nightwalker in Morts had less hit points, and this one has more. So more hit points, overall stat line is the same. Immunities and resistances more or less unchanged. Condition immunities more or less unchanged. Still CR20. Annihilating Aura. DC 21 takes 6d6. Aha! This has been buffed. Okay, I'm kind of happy about this now. So the Nightwalker's aura has been buffed. So this is good. If a creature is reduced to 0 hit points, cannot be revived except by wish. Yeah, same thing. Multi-attack. Enervating Focus, one of which can be replaced with Finger of Doom if available. Enervating Focus, what does it do? Plus 12. So is this still plus 12? Yes, it's still plus 12. Range is 15 feet. 28 points of necrotic damage. The target must succeed on DC 21 Constitution save, or its hit points is reduced by an amount equal to the damage taken. So this is unchanged. The damage is unchanged for this. Enervating Focus is unchanged. Finger of Doom, 300 feet. Succeed on a DC 21 Wisdom save or take 39. So extra damage here as well. So the Finger of Doom damage has gone up. So I'm also happy about that. And it becomes frightened until end of turn of the Nightwalker's next turn. The creature is also paralyzed while frightened in this way. Okay, yeah. So the Nightwalker has been slightly buffed, and I am happy about this because I love my Nightwalkers. So this is not too bad. I guess I should be happy for this stat change. Let's take a look at Sorrowsworn. So talking about Sorrowsworn, we actually had some use out of the Sorrowsworn monsters the other day when I was running a private game. So we have a regular private game here in the studio for a group of friends who wanted a JRPG themed adventure story, and they have been playing a campaign for that, and they encountered some creatures that were kind of modeled off Sorrowsworn, or rather we used the stat block for the Sorcerer, and it was super fun. And I'm kind of curious about whether there were any changes to them, especially since the Sorcerer are some rather amazing monsters. I'm not going to look at the Angry, I'm going to look at some of the ones that I used the other day. I used the Lonely and the Lost. So let's take a look at that. And I'm going to just peek at the stat blocks a little bit. So the Lonely Sorcerer, 16 AC, 112 hit points, nothing changed there. Stat line relatively unchanged. Damage resistances unchanged. You have a Nightwalker in one of your adventures? Yeah, they have a buff. It's lovely, it's amazing. It's extra 2 dice of damage on the Aura and the Finger of Death. Psychic Leech, DC 15 or take 10 psychic damage. Okay, that's unchanged. Try some company. Multi-attack. 1 Harpoon Arm and use a Sorrowful Embrace. So Harpoon Arm is a +7. Okay, so it's unchanged. 48 plus 3. Escape DC 15. Sorrowful Embrace does 48 or half as much as success. Okay, so that's not too different. There wasn't much of a change there. So that's nice. So I can still use my Lonely. And how about the Lost? Embrace 25 arm spikes, 2d10 plus 3, so not unchanged for that. AC and 8 points, stat line more or less the same as well. Embrace does 27 psychic damage. Okay, so not too different for the Sorrow Sword as far as I can tell. It's nice. And Skulks, of course, are one of my favorite monsters. I have used this in one of my adventures that I published, and they are a significant part of the adventure. In fact, the entire story revolves around Skulks. And of course, because since I am writing about such creatures, I have to be sure that nothing significantly changed for that. So let me see, where were the Skulks in? Were they in Mords as well? I think they were in Mords. Just check to be sure. Yes, they are in Mords. AC unchanged, hit points unchanged. Stealth +8, con +2, blah blah blah. Fallible invisibility. So they made it more obvious what elements they are, will counteract their invisibility. So Trackless is the same, plus D4 +4 and 3 necrotic damage. So they no longer have their special attack bonus for if they have advantage on attack roll. So they instead deal a fixed extra d6 damage. So this potentially makes them more consistent, I suppose. So it's not a bad thing, because sometimes if they have advantage, and most of the time they will have advantage because they're invisible, are not easily seen, so they can potentially do more damage. But here they're kind of, I guess the damage is kind of, they deal a little less damage now, but they're more consistent overall, because you don't have to worry about whether they have advantage on attack roll or not. And I guess it's not the worst. But yeah, so looking at what we have here for More Than Kindly Presents Monsters Multiverse, I have to admit that there are a lot of fun and interesting creatures that we can mess around with. Is there a specific name that calls out to you when you're looking at the list here of stat blocks? We could take a quick look at them. I mean, hey, Stench Cow. The Stench Cows are now have been published here, which means that they can be used if you ever write a dungeon craft story, because you can now add monsters of the of the multiverse to your dungeon craft adventures, and so stench cows can be officially a part of a dungeon craft adventure, and they can cause horrible things to people. You could have a whole horde of stench cows run people. And that is kind of cool. I kind of now that I think about it, I should probably take a look at the Cloud Giant Smiling one as well, because I remember that they had spells and abilities. Things look a little different. So they get a bonus action, teleport, I think. So this is a new and fun ability, and of course we had Jazian paint a Cloud Giant Smiling one the other time. It was a pretty lovely paint job as well. So let's see, telekinetic strike. So they have some new stuff, I think. A little different. And is it just me, or did their hit points go up really, really high? You're generally pleased with thoughtfulness in the new book with the array of options. I agree, absolutely. I have to think that they did an amazing job with the overall concept of the book, and some of the updates are very, very much welcome. They are so much more easy for DMs to use. Well, giant smiling one for 6. In the old book, it follows. So yeah, so in the past they didn't have the telekinetic strike. So this has been changed. So now they have telekinetic strike instead of a rock, and they have a slam attack, which is a little different from the old Morningstar attack that they had. And this, I guess, makes it more thematically appropriate because it kind of feels like it makes sense for a Cloud Giant Smiling one to use magical based or attacks rather than use a club or a Morningstar or throw a rock at someone, because it doesn't feel very right for a a somewhat more spellcasting oriented giant to use those options. Yeah, man. So I'm really excited about Monsters and Multiverse as well. I think I'm very, very keen to use some of these monsters at the table for sure. And I'm probably going to work with some of the arcane spellcasters in some of the stat blocks for my upcoming adventures I'm publishing. And unfortunately, some of the monster stat blocks I really loved did not quite make it to Monsters and Multiverse. They are stuck in Volos. And those are the Orc variants. I love the Orc variants, like the Orc Ninjas and the Orc, special Orc warrior types. And they didn't quite make it, which is a bit of a shame. So that was the part that I was a little bit sad about. I wonder if there's anything that anyone here in chat would like to take a look at. So we have quite a few other stat blocks that have been reprinted or adjusted and are here in the list, and we might be able to see some interesting variants or some interesting adjustments. I don't know, Cybrex. Cybrex is also used in one of my modules in the past, and I think there isn't a whole lot of difference. Red caps, let's take a look at red caps first before we jump back to Cybrex, yeah? Red caps over here. So red caps, I think, appeared in, was it Volos? In follows before. Just peek at follows and we'll see. Red cap was 188 in follows, yes. So this is an interesting variation. It was a significant change. So they had iron boots, so it's the same thing. Disadvantage of stealth. Outsized strength, so when grappling, considered to be medium. Also, wielding a heavy weapon does not cause any penalties. 3 attacks with Wicked Sickle, so it's the same so far. Wicked Sickle is a +6 and does 2d4 +4 damage. Ironbound Pursuit. Moves at speed up to a creature they can see and kicks it with the boots. Must sit on DC 14 or take 20 points of damage and be knocked prone. So yeah, no differences to red caps. So red caps are kind of the same, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So let's see. Just now, I was taking a quick look at the Sybrax. So 19 armor, 150 hit points. I don't think those changed. Flies 20 feet. Stat line looks the same. Not a bad thing. Special abilities, contamination. 4d6 poison damage. Yup. Legendary resistance. No more innate spellcasting. The spellcasting has been changed to spellcasting ability under actions. Multi-attack. Uses chain attacks 3 times and squirt ball once. So yeah, so they change. It's no longer able to use the bite attack. There's no longer a bite attack. Chains deal force damage. So no longer piercing, they deal force damage now, which is nice. I think this is a fantastic change. Squirt ball is DC 20, 9d6 acid damage instead of 10d6. So the squirt ball got a slight nerf. So they lost about maybe 4 points of damage overall. Spell casting, DC 21. So this is a bit sad because it can only feeble mind once per day now instead of 3 times per day. So this is definitely a big difference for the Sybrax. It's not so cool because being able to feeble mind more times per day was awesome. Warp creature, DC 20 con save. On a success, creature becomes immune. On a fail, the target is poisoned. Gains level exhaustion while poisoned. Must repeat the save. Otherwise, it costs another level exhaustion until it dies and turns into a maze. So it used to just say it was a living abyssal wretch, so now it's a maze. Okay, so that makes sense. It gives you a proper stat block for that. And yeah. So some adjustments. Not so great. Lost 2 uses of Feeble Mind, but still a bit of a challenge, I would say. Still not the worst. Not the worst. Yeah. Other creatures I've used before. Slithering Tracker. I don't think this is going to change. Yep, doesn't look like there were significant changes. Shargaas. So the Shargaas have some interesting variations now, I think. Because quite a few of them have spells and similar abilities as well. So let's see if there's anything different for the Shargaas. Shargaas. What's up in follows? Shargaas. Hold on, let me just check to be sure. Where were the Shargaas before that? The Raven Queen and the Shargaas, but there were no specific Shargaas listed. So these might be interesting to see because I think this might be potentially new. So they have some good abilities as well. Misty Escape, Shadow Dancer. Spike Chain with some special abilities. Soulmonger. I think these will make some excellent monsters for tier 2 adventure if you were to ever write a dungeon craft, especially if it takes place in the Anshi courts or in places related to the Dark Fang. So these are actually pretty useful as stat blocks for that. So these are kind of nice. So these were originally also featured in the Shargaas entry, and I think there are some, of course, the changes came about because of spellcasting. The spellcasting has changed a fair bit, and I think this is a consistent thing across the board. For anything that has spellcasting, it has become a mix of at will and once per day or two per day abilities. And I guess the advantage though for the Shargaas Gloomweaver, for example, is the Misty Escape recharges on a 6 instead of a long or short rest. And that is quite helpful. Of course, they have extra, slightly more powerful attacks, I would say. So the Shadow Spear now has the added clause here that says that the spear returns to the Shargaas' hand immediately after a ranged attack. So this is a little different from the past. Shadow Dancer, instead of picking the effect of the Spike Chain, you now roll for it, or you choose. So this is an added benefit. So this gives you the option of picking something random if you wish. And as for the Soulmonger has the spellcasting ability here, once per day each. Otherwise, I think there's not a whole lot of difference. Yeah, wow. This is actually kind of cool. I wonder if the Demon Lords were changed any significantly. There was Orcus on the cover, right, of the box. So I'm just gonna check if any of the demon lords have changed in any significant way. Is there Orcus? Orcus, there we go! Orcus! Aha! Our good friend. Spellcasting. Wand spellcasting. So let's see if there are any significant changes to the demon lords. This is a fairly interesting setup. So AC 17, 20 with one of Orcus, unchanged, hit points unchanged, flying is the same, stat line more or less the same, saves more or less the same, resistances and immunities more or less unchanged. Legendary resistance, 3 per day, magic resistance, yes. Master of Undeath. Animate dead at will and create undead 3 times per day. So this is a little different from the old stat block. Chooses the level at which the spells are cast and creatures created remain under his control indefinitely. He can create undead even when it isn't night. Wields the wand of Orcus. Multi-attack. Makes 3 wand of Orcus attacks. Tail or necrotic bolt attacks. So this has changed a little bit. Instead of making 2, he makes 3. Wand of Orcus hits for a fair amount of damage. 3, 8 plus 11. And 2d12 necrotic. So damage has gone up a little bit here as well. And he has tail attack or a necrotic bolt. So before that he didn't have necrotic bolt before, but this is now his default range attack, I think. Conjure undead once per day. Spellcasting, dispel magic 3 times, not great. But this used to be the same in the past. So he can time stop once per day, which is the same as last time. Detect magic, same as last time. While holding the wand of Orcus, can cast 1 of the following spells. So this is just like his wand of Orcus feature of his stat block in the past. Animate dead as an action at will, blind to speak with the dead. 1 charge, circle of death, finger of death. Power word kill 2 charges. So nothing too different. I guess addition of necrotic bolt is kind of helpful because having a ranged spell option or ranged attack option is always good. Creeping Death, choose a point within the ground, cylinder of swirling necrotic energies. Creatures in the area have vulnerabilities to necrotic damage. Okay, sure. So some very minor adjustments to the stat block for the Demon Lord. I guess this is not a bad thing. And I think overall, looking at things so far, and I think that this is a pretty helpful indicator of what to expect. If you look at the whole list of, yeah, let's look at the monster list, appendices. So the good thing about this is that the appendices, you can easily see how they're summed up. They're now nicely tabulated by, you know, creature types. So this makes looking for stat blocks a lot easier. And obviously, all these things are going to be usable whether you're writing a dungeon craft or whether you're running a new adventure or not, or you're just, you know, looking for something to throw at your players. And I really like what I've seen so far. I think that overall, Monsters of the Multiverse has some parts where the monsters are nerfed and some parts where the monsters are kind of slightly better. So overall, I think you do, with a give and take, it still gives you a lot of options in the book. Just one book gets so many monster entries. And these are generally the entries that you will need to tell any good story. So this is good to have. Monsters with challenge ratings, so you can kind of tell how powerful a monster is, how good they are, how dangerous they are to deal with the characters. Do you see, if you were to ask me if Monsters of the Multiverse is worth getting, I would say it's not an entirely bad choice. You may still need to refer to volos or morts for certain things that may not have been reprinted. But overall, I would say this is a generally useful purchase. And it's not a bad book to have, not a bad book to use if you're planning to tell a story involving any of these monsters. And there are a whole lot of monsters to use, especially with the way things are redesigned. Imagine if you had to look for things as that, you have monster types by environment, monster types by their CR and all that. This is actually a very useful appendix. So it makes things so much easier for you. And of course, if you were playing Adventurers League, yep, definitely Monster Manual and Monsters of the Multiverse are going to be the new standard. These are going to be your two go-to books that you need, and the only two books you kind of need. Of course, some of the nice stat blocks, like the Archmage, which has not been updated, which means that if you're still writing, an adventure featuring an Archmage, use the old Archmage stat block. And that means you can change the spells of the Archmage. Aha! But you can't change the spells in Monsters of the Multiverse by default if you are playing Adventurers League. If you're playing a home game, go ahead and change the spells. I think it's perfectly fine. But yeah, so Mords presents Monsters of the Multiverse is a great choice if you are a player character. If you're building a player character, if you want to get your race options, this is not a bad book of race options. There are some good monster stat blocks in there as well. If you are a DM, if you're going to buy this for your own table, and you want to share this with all your players, say, hey, this is a great choice. Give them the ability to play a monstrous character. And now that everything is kind of consolidated in this book, you get to play some of the things that may not have been able to be played before, such as the Shifter in Forgotten Realms, or or playing, I don't know, a Minotaur in Forgotten Realms, for example. As for the monsters themselves, like I said, I kind of like some of the changes that they made to the NPC stat blocks. I like the fact that all of them now have an attack ability and attack function, but I also don't like the lack of utility in spells. So if you want to use the older stat blocks as well, right now I think in Adventurers League, if you are presenting content, if you are writing a new adventure, for example, the current decision moving forward is that you can still use older references, older stat blocks, if you are publishing a dungeon craft. But in the future, when season 12 rolls around and we're publishing dungeon craft for the Spelljammer setting, you are going to have to use Monsters of the Multiverse. And I think that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly fair. Moving forward, of course, things are going to change. Maybe there's going to be other books, monster books, I don't know. But it looks like NPC stat blocks where they have a fixed list of spells are going to be here to stay. There's no longer going to be NPC stat blocks where they have a list of prepared spells just like in the old days. That's not going to happen anymore. So I think it's good for us to understand that and use these stat blocks moving forward as well. If you are a writer. And for the time being, I mean, I definitely like the fact that some things got buffed. Like I said, Nightwalker got buffed. That was a good, clear example. And I'm looking forward to using different options, mixing and matching from all the books for some of the stories I tell on the table. Yes, Ardak, I absolutely agree. Disintegrating their player characters is always fun. And you can still do that with mages and archmages because these are two different stat blocks that are not in Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. So you can still throw in thematically appropriate additions if you are running Adventurers League as well. So you can just pop them in and you can feel free to change your spells and you can run them. But if you were going to be using any of the specialist wizards, NPC types like Abjurer, Diviner, whatever, things are a little different. But that's to be expected. I would say overall, the fact that most of the stat blocks got an update makes things both kind of fun and also kind of challenging if you want to challenge powerful players. So if you're running for a home game, definitely feel free to make your necessary adjustments. If you are running Adventurous League, I guess, it's not so great. You're maybe a little out of luck. I'm just gonna look at the Drow Matron Mother, for example. I know everyone loves their Matron Mothers. Yep. And true enough, the Drow Matron Mother has changed a little bit. Or rather, changed a lot. So their spellcasting abilities, they still have 2 per day Blade Barrier, 2 per day each. Banishment, Blade Barrier, Whole Person, Plane Shift, Silence. Not bad. Once per day Gate. Okay, I guess not so great. I guess there are some things that are not so great, some things that are not so cool. They can still summon a Yokolo, so that's not the worst. I think their attacks are not so strong now.
What's with
Tentacle Rod. There's Tentacle Rod, so that's not the worst. Just gonna take a quick look at the stat block. Let's see if there's.
I think they weakened Demon Summoning.
Yeah, I think
they
they
weakened
might
Demon Summoning.
have.
Definitely did.
Let me just see. Drow Matron Mother 186.
Draw your mom.
Yes, it's Drow your mom. So Tentacle Rod, still kind of the same. So they still have it. If it's hit 3 times with the rod, they get bad stuff. Summon Servant once per day, yeah, this is kind of the same. Demon Staff, kinda the same. They get something new called Divine Flame, which is their new 2 per day special ability, 45 column with Divine Fire. This is like an inbuilt Flame Strike. So they get their innate Flame Strike on top of their other things, and they get to cast their Blade Barrier twice, which is not
that strong. They used to be able to outcast it anyway.
Yeah, and they don't get harm anymore. So
Disapprove.
Okay, Jazin says disapprove. So yeah. Drow Inquisitor, Spectral Dagger, Death Lance. Spectral Dagger kind of. Wait a minute. This is like spiritual weapon, isn't it? So they might have changed a few things around for those as well. But yeah, whatever it is, I think we have had a good glimpse overall of Monsters of the Multiverse, and I think that I'm kind of excited to use some of these stat blocks. Are you excited to use some of these stat blocks? Because I know I sure am, and I'm thinking of adjusting some of these stories that I'm writing so far. So I have a dungeon craft that's in the works right now that is not quite done yet because I have been procrastinating. Horrible me. And I might do some tweaks to that. So I might use some of the stat blocks from here. And if anyone is excited about checking out, More Than Kind Presents Monsters Multiverse, it's available, of course, now on D&D Beyond. It's released since the 17th, and you can probably get that on D&D Beyond. If you're interested in getting a rule expansion gift set of your own, you're curious about this, and you are based in Singapore, you can check out our Geekified storefronts. It is available on Shopee from us. And if you are looking to purchase it, and if you are overseas, drop us a note, and we are happy to process your order and ship it over to you. Yeah, it's about 2 hours. It's almost 10:30. It's been a really long day for me. I'm just probably gonna log off and chill and go read more of my More Than Kind Presents Monsters and Multiverse and plan my other adventures coming up. Next on the agenda, we are gonna have a painting stream on Wednesday. So we're not gonna be streaming our regular game stream for a while because we're just shifting our schedules around a little bit, and we're gonna have a painting stream on Wednesday. Jazzy is gonna be painting, and she'll be working on some more NPCs to flesh out the awesome sets that we have on our tables for when we play D&D with our guest visitors to our studio. And next week again on Monday, I will be talking more about encounter design. I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people have been asking me about, especially with things moving towards Spelljammer, which is the next season 12 for Adventures League. We're probably going to be looking a little bit at some options that we can use, how to make things more exciting, especially when we're writing stories based in outer space, right? So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about. Environment effects, designing the environment next Monday for our DM inspiration. So in any case, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'm really glad we had a chance to chat about Monsters of the Multiverse. I am super happy that our lovely Wizards of the Coast senpai sent this box over to us for us to unbox and to talk about here on stream. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and have a good day or good night wherever you are. This is Jason signing